Good morning and welcome to Morning Coffee with Brigid. I'm Brigid Burke, and today's the 25th of March, 2025. So it's 3:25:25. So we are at, it's Tuesday. And yeah, looks like it's going to be a reasonably nice day today. Probably more normal spring weather. And I'm absolutely exhausted this morning because I taught my first class last night in person for a while. And and the class was fine. Everything went fine. But I actually went and, it was, the class was fine. But when I got home and good morning, Alex. Yeah, I thought I saw somebody coming on, so I kind of interrupted my thought there. Yes, good morning. Good to see you on here. Yeah, I taught my first class last night and it went fine. It's interesting because there was a lot of buildup to people telling me all the things that normally, I guess, go wrong with this particular class. And, oh, the students have to be this way, and you got to keep on top of them for this and that and the other thing. And I don't know. My whole thing is just, I don't see any reason to do that. I assume I'm dealing with adults, and good morning, Kathleen. So, yeah, so I taught, the course is actually information and digital literacy. And it was fine. They were engaged. And good morning, Joanne. Yeah, I had students asking a lot of questions even after class. People were like saying to me, I need to talk to you about this. I need to talk to you about that. And it's funny because, and good morning, Suda. What's kind of interesting is that when you have people, you have students in a computer lab and you're talking, you're doing a lecturing, and sometimes it seems like they're on the computer. And what I found out, at least some of them were doing when they came later, they're like, oh yeah, I was like, they were like looking me up, like what I do. And they were also like following along, like if I was asking questions and looking for stuff as I was talking about it. So it wasn't, so sometimes that appears to be non-engagement, but it's like they're listening and I've noticed that there's people do that. Like my nephew always does that. Whenever I see my nephew, if I start talking to him about something, I see him start to frantically go on his phone. And it's not that he's ignoring you and being on his phone. What he's doing is he's actually like, oh, you're talking about this. Let me look it up. Like it's weird. It's kind of like that. That was kind of the behavior that I was seeing there. But everybody was very respectful, and some are more engaged than others. And some were like super engaged. So it was a good class. And I walked out and I was like, yeah, okay, that was a pretty good first night. I got through everything I wanted to. And yeah, so it makes me interested in doing it. Yeah, learning has changed so much. That's so cool. Yeah, you're right. Learning has changed a lot. And yeah, but I think there's a lot of people who just assume, that if you're doing this, that you're not paying attention. And good morning, Kelsey. It's good to see you. It's good to see everybody this morning. So yeah, so I got home. It gets very foggy here at night. That's the only problem, is that when I have to drive in the fog. And that is kind of scary, especially since there's a lot of deer out at this time of year. And I'm like, okay, I've already had one deer hit, which we talked about last year, I guess. And I don't need another one. So it ends up being I have to go kind of slowly when I go back home. And then I have people on the road who are driving 10 miles an hour, below the speed limit. And I'm like, do we really have to go this slow, especially in some areas where it's not foggy? But in any case, it's fine. You're wired when you get home from doing all that. And so you don't get to bed till like 10, 11. And then I'm up doing this live stream. My body kept wanting to wake up at like 2:30 in the morning. And I'm like, no, go back to sleep. So anyway, if I'm a little tired today, that's kind of the reason why. So I just figured today what we would do is I was going to do some readings, and we'll make this a cartouche day, I think, because I have my cartouche cards. Let's see what comes up, because like I said, we are in the middle of a rather potent week. I'm realizing that probably by a week from Sunday, we've got Saturday and Sunday this weekend coming up. Like I said, we've got the solar eclipse, and we've got Neptune moving into Aries. And Neptune moving into Aries is much bigger than people might imagine, because that is literally, because it's almost like Neptune has completed an entire zodiac cycle. And now we're starting again with a new cycle. And the outer planets tend to affect things that are on a major scale. The planets that are closer to us have to do with our personal lives. Yay, love cartouche. Yes, a lot of cartouche fans on here. we have yeah, the was sorry, I easily lose my train of thought here, and it's not because of that. Um, yeah, we have the Neptune, right? Because Neptune is moving into you know, when you have planets that are closer to you, they have more to do with your immediate life. This is kind of like why Mercury retrograde tends to have a big impact on us. And Alex says, yes, agreed. Neptune and Aries is like a whole new era. Yeah, exactly. And so Neptune, sorry, Mercury, Venus, Mars, they tend to have to do with our immediate emotions. They have to do immediate communications because, you know, Mercury has a lot to do with what's local, right? Whereas Jupiter has to do with what's not. Because once you start getting into the, you know, the gas giants, so to speak, you know, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and particularly Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, you're definitely moving into a space of things that are epoch changing, I guess you could say. So yeah, we have a lot, and we're going to have two outer planets, and one is going to be Neptune, and the other is going to be Saturn by the end of July. So all of those things, I mean, we're, you know, we probably feel like we've all had enough change this year, right? But there's going to be even more. And like I said, we're in the height of an eclipse season. I think, who was I looking at? Storm Sestavani. He was saying that he was kind of calling this, I don't know if he was saying it was like a nasty eclipse, but it was the idea that this was an energy that was going to be real, extremely potent and connected with this this new moon eclipse in probably in Aries. Somebody was saying Pisces, another person was saying Aries. I'm pretty sure this is a new moon. I think this is a new moon in Aries. So it is a very fiery kind of solar eclipse. Yeah, so we'll see what happens. But let's just start by doing some cartouche cards. Just going to do a regular 5-card, just to see what comes up for us for where we're at. Like I said, we're all at Tuesday. What we're looking forward to this week. What do we have here? So let's see what we have here. And so I have to remind myself in the cards, this is not for me personally, it's for the group. Because there's sometimes I'll do a collective reading for people, and then I'll look at it and I'll be like, boy, that sounds like something going on in my life. But you know, sometimes it's what's going on with me is also, Amma is doing Shani Puja on Saturday. Oh, that's actually, I didn't realize she was doing that. That is super significant. And Alex is saying, yeah, it's a partial solar eclipse in Aries and will complete the Aries-Libra axis of eclipse. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I love having Alex on because Alex always is able to verify behind me because I kind of have seen things and then it's not, I forget about it or it's just not in front of me. And there's so many things going on that I'm like, wait, is this happening? Is this happening? So I appreciate the clarification of that. And what Sudo's saying about the Shani Puja, yeah, Shani is Saturn Puja. And yeah, Amma is she's very Shani oriented. And that's what I've often said to you. I'd love to hear more. I'll email you, Brigid. Thank you. Yes. Yes. Yeah, definitely email me and let me know more. Anytime. You know, yes, thank you. I appreciate that. So yeah, Shani is, have I had Shani Puja said for me before? I think so. But the fact that she's doing it means that there's something big going on. Like, you know, for some reason, Saturn needs to be placated. And I can tell you some of the readings I did this morning before I came on, very, very Saturn heavy. So, and Saturn has to do with the payment of karma. Alex, you're so knowledgeable astrology. I need to know more. Yeah. No, Alex is very knowledgeable for sure. Oh, actually, I'm glad you brought that up, Suda, because on April, is it April? I have to look at my calendar. We do have an astrology class coming up next month. I want to say it's either April 5th or 19th, but I can't, maybe not, it's not going to be when I now have the Reiki class, but I do have an astrology 101 on the calendar if you are interested in taking that to introduce you more to astrology. So, just kind of whether you take it or not, it's kind of a general plug just for the class. Since you mentioned knowing more about astrology, I was like, oh, there's an opportunity for me to plug that class. So yeah, I will have to advertise that starting this week. So, so anyway, yeah, okay. Our cartouche reading for today. So our first card, it's funny. We're talking about Shani. We're talking about the influence of Saturn. and about the payment of karma and things. I think this is why also some people, there's a lot of physical aches and pains going on for people lately. There may be certain things that are, sometimes we're awakening to certain things. Oh, thank you both. That's very kind. I try my best. Yeah, well, that's, yeah, you definitely have a lot of knowledge of astrology. So I said, yeah, it's, when I talk about basic astrology, I'm like, yeah, Alex will know, for sure. Probably more than basic, but, yeah, so it's, we have this strong Saturn influence right now, and that seems to be coming up in a lot of readings. Every reading I do, Saturn is always coming up. So if Amma's doing Shani Puja, I guess is what I'm saying, is that she feels there's some reason that we need to mitigate the influence of those. Puja is done to mitigate the influence of a particular graha, or planetary influence. So yeah, the fact that she feels the need to do that is very significant. And I need to look into what Saturn, maybe we can talk about that on tomorrow's live stream. I need to look at kind of what Saturn is doing right now that is of particular concern. But yeah, when I do the astrology cards and so forth, it keeps showing up. Okay, so back to Cartouche. First card is fire. Okay, now we're talking about Aries energy, right? We're talking about Neptune moving into Aries. We're talking about all this stuff. But fire also has an element of purging or purification to it. Okay. And we have the idea of purgatory, right? You have the idea of something, some kind of a purging. And, you know, it's, so we have purgatory, kind of an energy here. And that's what I keep feeling with this card. Like there's a purging that's going on. There's like a detox. Now, as you know, I'm somebody who's not a big believer in, you know, like exorcising, EXORCIZING, not exorcising something from your life, because I tend to believe in the Nietzschean idea that, you know, if you exorcise your demons, you might be getting rid of the best part of you. But I tend to think that when you burn, in a sense, burn something down to ash, you could think of the metaphor of the phoenix, right, that rises from the ashes. You could also think about fire as having to do with the way in which when you, it's almost like an alchemical process, or like what happens with a violet flame, right, where it burns something up, but it burns it up not to destroy it, but rather to transmute it into something else. So there's like a transformational energy. And I did actually see this in the 8th house this morning when I was doing another reading. So that is certainly the house of transformation. So I feel like here for us, it's like this is this idea that there's this fiery transformation going on, right? And you can think about being like in a crucible. It's like something's being made out of this. The way in which you make, you know, you put things to make, you know, in this kind of fiery furnace or this heat to make something. When people would make, you know, things out of iron or bronze or whatever, you know, they would make weapons, and they would make other technological tools. You have to fire it like in this crucible, right? And also, you know, even things though, like making pottery and stuff, you know, you have to put it in a hot kiln. You know, there's this fire that has to go in. It's almost like you have to get baked, you know, not this way, which, you know, I suppose you could do that too, but just like you know, it's like we're cooking, you know. So yeah, so there's a strong fire element going on right now, and our point of interest is the twins. Okay, now this is interesting. Twins is often Gemini energy, can be Libra energy too. Actually, both the Gemini and Libra houses are affected right now. They're affected by what we're doing in, you know, with the retrogrades particularly, because the fact that the retrogrades are happening and we have this Saturnian influence, there's definitely this sense of we need to, this revisiting that we're doing is actually having this effect on us of kind of almost refiring us or remaking us in some way. And because Gemini has to do with Mercury and Libra is connected to Venus, right? And they're both retrograde right now. And those are both the twin kind of energies that we see in astrology. So the twins is a card of, how do I put it? I think coming up here, there could be questions about how we are balancing things. and also questions about how we are relating to the other. Okay, how we are relating to the world, not only the world around us. There's been a lot about how we as individuals make ourselves in connection with society. Okay, how do we connect with others? Now, whether this is on the immediate level, you know, our families, our friends, our loved ones, our, you know, people who have children, their children, whether it's that kind of an energy, or whether we're talking about an energy of, you know, just connection in general. Because I feel like there's a lot of people who have gone through these phases of not wanting to, there's a lot of people who have been kind of in hermit mode, okay? And I can probably count myself among them, really. You know, probably more recently, is just kind of like there's been this sense of, I just kind of want to stay where I'm at, and I don't want, you know, I don't necessarily want to go out right now. I just kind of want to stay in my own house, stay in my own lane, and not, you know, kind of keep my head down a little bit. But I feel like the twins, to a certain degree, is about, no, it's about relating. It's about connecting to the other. We've seen a lot of 10th and 11th house action in our readings recently as well. So I think there's this idea that, you know, how are you facing the public? How are you shining your light? How are you expressing who you are? And of course, you know, with this whole crucible effect, though, it's like we're trying to figure out who we are, right? We're all trying to figure out, you know, what's going on and who we are here. And yeah, so there's definitely something about connecting to the other. Now, for some people watching this could have to do with a specific relationship. There could be a fire effect going on. There could be a test. There could be an inspiration too. Fire can also inspire us. It can also, we can have like an aha moment, an epiphany, right? But it can also be something where, you know, when something is put under heat, it's tested. Its ability to crack or not crack can be tested as well. There's a lot here with how we're connecting, or things that we're understanding. One of the things I was talking to somebody about with Mercury retrograde yesterday is sometimes you find out who people are in this kind of thing. There was some things we were talking about, and somebody said, yeah, you know, Mercury retrograde, you get to know, you know, somebody may show you their true colors. So there's a lot about, this seems to not just be about what's going on inside of us. I mean, everything happens in relation to the outside, but this is maybe more about what we're seeing in the world and how we're, you know, how we're internalizing that, or how we're transforming that. Okay, so our factor here, we have Thoth. Okay, factor to be considered is Thoth. Now with Thoth coming up, Thoth is, now Thoth to me is the card of Saturn in this deck, okay? And Saturn, because it has to do with time. It has to do with time, it has to do with divine timing. Now Thoth has to do with a lot of other things too. You know, Thoth is the scribe of the gods, right? So it has to do with a lot of times people who deal in Akashic records or soul records will be, you know, Thoth is a factor. The idea of that probably comes out of the, you know, Thoth as a scribe, keeper of the records of the soul. Thoth also, excuse me, has to do with healing. It has to do with healing at the most profound level. And certainly a lot of what we are doing, I feel like a lot of the change, even a lot of the heat being applied to us, you know, Saturn has a corrective energy. The idea is it may be trying to fix something. It could be trying to fix something that's broken, or it's trying to, you know, remake you. The influence of Saturn astrologically is one that that remakes us. It's not only something that we like. Sometimes it you know, either because it's something that feels painful, maybe it's something we don't want to think about or face up to, or it could just be something that we want now and it's going to take time. You know, wow, I really want this outcome, but you know, the reality is here are the steps and here are the work that's involved for you to achieve the thing that you want to achieve. And sometimes, you know, when we're tired and when we've been through a lot already, we're like, well, fuck it, you know, I don't want to do any more work. What the hell, you know? So there could be that kind of an element to it. But when Thoth comes up, I always feel like there's something going on. It has a little bit of a vibe of the Wheel of Fortune to me too, because there's something about it that says we are in a space that is, to a certain degree, out of our control. There's an element of divine timing in play. Things are happening for a reason. And Thoth also has to do with karma as well in this deck. So yeah, there seems like people are like paying off karmic debts, I guess you could say. That's one way to look at it. Like what's happening here is whatever, it's almost like we're starting the bank account with new stuff in it. So we're making sure that the old debts are paid up first. It's like if you're going to okay, sell the house and move, you got to make sure you paid everything off first, right? You can't just go and still carry debt with you. So there's a certain amount of this about paying off debt. But when we tend to pay off karmic debt, it's not so much, I think we tend to think about karmic payoff in terms of sin, right? That in the West, at least, there tends to be this idea that, oh, I did a bad thing and now I have to suffer the consequences for it, right? There's that kind of an attitude. But that's not always what it is. Sometimes it's just more either an inability or unwillingness to see something about ourselves. And it doesn't have to even be something bad. It could be an area maybe where we think we're not responsible for something, and it's kind of like, actually, these are the tools and resources you have. This is what maybe this would be the better thing to do in this situation. I found over the years that Saturn can have a very sobering effect, but it doesn't, and it can bring endings to things. It can bring loss. It can change things up. But Saturn also can be okay, you've put the work in. It can also be a reward. It's the right time. Now you're going to see the fruits of something. But remember too, that even when we have worked very hard for something, sometimes the energy is, we get the final result and maybe it's not what we expected. Maybe it needs some adjustment, or maybe it's something that we, oftentimes we hold an image of something in our mind that doesn't always meet the reality. That's almost like when Jupiter's not quite in dignity, either when Jupiter's retrograde or when Jupiter is paired with something like Rahu, we can kind of inflate the way that we see things. So Saturn's kind of like, the sober up guy, like, hey, let's look at this for real. Let's look at what this really is about. So Saturn's really not our enemy. And the thing is, as we get older, and as we go through life, we go through periods of times where we've been frustrated and things have happened. But then later on, if you go back and look at things in retrospect, you kind of go, oh, you know what? Yeah, there was this period of time that was really difficult. But at the end of it, I actually ended up better than where I started. And Suda says, I'm so hopeful it's a reward law, like the claw game. I hope not to come back empty-handed this time. Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it, right? Like, you have the little thing and you're grabbing the little stuffy from the big claw machine. But divine timing is definitely part of it. Now, strictly speaking, this is neutral because it could go, it's time for something. Okay, is kind of what we're seeing, and whatever it is, when Thoth shows up, it's something fundamental to our soul or fundamental to karma in some way. So this might be good news for you, Suda. We now have, as the advice card, we have the Ankh. Okay. So what is Ankh? Ankh is about life. It's about living life. It's about living life to the fullest. Because remember, I feel like I've been talking about that like a broken record for months. But there's definitely this idea of embracing and enjoying life. And it's almost like we're trying to burn up or get rid of or integrate or take care of those things that keep us from really being joyful and enjoying life. And that really goes in with the messages that I see with the angels. And, it's, we get these kind of angelic messages where you have, where they keep saying, have joy, right? Have peace, have joy. And, and this is not only pointing that. Ankh, however, also in Egyptian myth is a life-death card. Okay. So this is about, this is a pretty profound transformation card is what I find when it comes up in a reading. It's kind of like life death. And yeah, so but I tend to see it as a more positive omen. It's just kind of like there's an opportunity for new life. And Ankh is really it's the fullness and the richness of life. Okay? It's not just a kind of it's not, I mean, sometimes people equate it with romantic love and with things like that. Like in Cartouche, if you actually read it within the system, Cartouche reads on 3 different levels. There's the transpersonal, there's the mental kind of, and then there's the mundane. So they talk about it. I guess you could talk about it. It's like spiritual, mental, physical is maybe another way to look at it. And so Ankh has to do with, on the transpersonal level, it's about this transformation of your soul. It's about embracing your life. It's about living a very authentic life. When it comes up in a reading about health, oftentimes Ankh means a long life. Okay. But I've also seen Ankh come up, and I'm just not going to lie about this. And I don't want to think this has a general application for everybody. So I also don't want to freak anybody out with it. But I've also sometimes seen this card come up when there has been death as well, because both can be connected with that too. It can be people who are passing out of this world because, you know, whatever they're doing is finished. And again, I'm not suggesting that's going to happen to anybody. I'm thinking about people who are much older and that we know are going to pass. We're not talking about, you know, something that's just going to randomly happen to people. So sometimes this is a card of life death. And that may apply for certain people. You know, there may be somebody who is passing out of their life. But I feel like more fundamentally, this is just about saying, find joy, live a very full life. You know, there's that kind of an energy. And our outcome card for this is Sirius. Okay. And Sirius, again, this is the Aquarian energy. Sirius has to do with not only the work that we have to put into something, because Sirius has a lot to do with physical, our physical health, and, you know, things like exercise, sport, stuff like that on the mundane level is what Sirius tends to be connected to, how we care for our physical bodies. But on the mental level, it's also about mental exercise too. It's about how do we think about things differently? How do we, you know, exercise our mind to not just simply fall back into the same way of thinking, into the same habit patterns, and the same way that we do things. It's about, I think the way Murray Hope puts it is, it's deprogramming the brain of orthodox concepts, okay, and looking to a much broader picture of things. But this takes work. As we all know, like I've said, I can sit here and I can talk forever about the things that we need to, you know, the way about thinking about things differently, right? And people go we all sit there, myself included, and go, yeah, I got to think about things differently. And it's not that easy to do. You know, it's not that easy to do. How do we think about things differently? So yeah, there's definitely the idea that there is going to be some work ahead, but I think this work is geared not only towards connecting us more with others, but this work is geared towards, you know, with the Ankh here, it's more geared towards really living a more fulfilling life, actually living life. I feel most people, a lot of the times, and this is not because of any inherent flaw in anybody, but just because of the way society gears us, I feel like the Ankh point, you know, there's that a lot of us go through life without actually ever living life. Okay. We spend all our time saying like, oh yeah, this is what I would really love to do with my life, but you know, I'm obliged to do this, or we do what we feel we are obliged to do. And interestingly, Saturn may also have to do with our duty or our obligation or the way we deal with authority. Okay. So we are obliged to do certain things. And yeah, so there's a strong feeling here of, and because we operate in that space where life has to be, you know, what's good for you. You know what I mean? You know, we don't enjoy the foods we like because, you know, we have to eat the bland, terrible things because, well, that's better for you. You know, that's good for you. Right? You can't, like, I was thinking the other day, we were talking about doctorates and PhDs and stuff, and I happen to have a Doctor of Letters. And I've heard people, you know, say at conferences and things, they'll be like, oh, well, I heard that's not a real doctorate. I have a PhD and mine's a real doctorate. And I like, listen, bitch, I had to know 3 foreign languages, 2 of them ancient. I had to read 250 books in multiple languages, 80 articles, and not only defend in front of a committee, but in front of a whole panel of people. So don't tell me I don't have a real doctorate. F you, you know? And the woman was just like, oh, well, I didn't know. I'm like, oh, well, maybe you should shut up then. Like, you know what you're talking about. Don't, you know, and you're supposed to have a degree. Like, yeah, let's just randomly talk about stuff we don't know anything about. I don't know. That was just kind of it's weird. That was just kind of an annoying thing that had come up at this one conference I had been at, where I was just hearing this woman just like absolutely knew nothing. I don't know anything about this degree, but I'm sure it's not good. And I'm like, well, I probably did more for my degree than you did. So yeah, anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to derail into that, but it is that kind of a thing of, you know, that Saturnian energy. What's the work that you put into it? You know, what is the work? And I think also, you know, when I think about it, I think a lot of us, when we have problems with, ew, rude, I know. I love your cheap shop. Thank you. Yeah, that is, well, you do run into these people. These people who think that they are the lady, not you. No, oh, no, I know. I know what you meant, Kathleen. I just, yeah, she was just somebody I could just look at her and I'm like, oh God, you're like somebody who really, and I don't know. I've often said that having those kind of degrees. I mean, and I have a PhD. You know, I have a doctorate of letters. I have a doctorate. But I mean, it's true of anybody. Having a doctorate doesn't mean that you know everything. And sometimes people have it and they walk around like it's a badge of, yeah, like I'm better than you. And I'm like, no, you're not. You know, sometimes, and not everybody who has a doctorate knows how to teach either. But I think the point I was making about that is that there's this perception that going to grad school, doing post-grad and all that, which is putting in all the extra work, right? It's Jupiter energy because it's ninth house. It's expanding your knowledge. But there is that Saturnian element to it of like, well, you have to take your time. You have to go through. You have to read resources. It's not like, you know, oh, I'm going to sit up at 3 a.m. and write my doctoral dissertation, you know, after drinking, you know, a case of Red Bull. Like it's not, it doesn't work like that. And there's a lot that goes along with that. But there's the idea in that's been told to me by many PhDs is that the process has to be painful. You know, if it doesn't hurt, then somehow you're not doing it right. And the doctorate that I went through actually, I mean, doing work is there's always days when I'm like, you know, I don't really want to spend my time sitting here writing and rewriting, and then your readers send back chapters and, you know, suggest all these changes and stuff. And then you've got to go back and you've got to revisit and rethink and find the sources. And it's a lot of work, which is why I tell people, though, if you're going to put that work in, that work needs to be your joy. Like people who say, gee, I think I'll get a doctorate. I'm like, do you want one? Do you really want one? Don't just do it because you think it's going to look nice on your CV, unless it's something that's required for something you want to do. Some careers you do need a PhD, or the equivalent. But I'm like, just make sure it's something you really want. And yeah, because if you have to get into that layer of work and it's something that is a drudgery and you hate doing it, you are going to regret it. And depending on who your mentors are, what university you're at, some of them completely blow you off and dismiss you. Other ones can be just really, really nasty. I've seen things happen to people at their doctoral defenses that I just think should never happen. But there's this attitude of almost like that's your crucible, that's your test. You know, I'm going to make this. I'm going to you've put all this work in, and I'm going to break you. You know. Just because I can. And I'm like, well, I've never found that to be helpful. You know, to make people go back and start again when they have put a lot of work into something and it is something worthwhile. Just because, you know, like, okay, I had a friend in England who had this happen to her when she was medievalist. She had a degree and she was there for her doctoral defense. They brought in a woman from Oxford, a medievalist from Oxford. They do that in the UK. They will bring in somebody who's completely from the outside, and they will read it over. And because my friend was originally from Yorkshire, she had a northern accent. This woman was just like immediately, because immediately the second this woman walked in the room, she kind of looked me up and down, and it was like, I already just think you're a moron because you're from the north. So she was just brutally dismissive of everything that she did, and even said, you know, And by the way, my friend's accent does not in any way sound unintelligible or, it was not, but they just basically said, oh, well, I think you sound like a moron, so I'm just going to fail you, like prejudicially. That when I heard that just got me really, really mad, because I'm like, that is just not, that's not, that is not, this is a constructive critique of what you've written. This is just, I think I'm better than you, So again, there's the things that the hoops we feel we have to jump through, the people that we feel we have to please, the things that we feel that we have to do, to make something authentic. Sometimes when we engage with others, they try to help us make things better. Other times people, it's just, well, I don't think it's good because it's not something I personally like, or this is not personally my thing, or that. And there's a difference between those two things. But those can be tests in and of themselves as well. When we have these kinds of tests, that can also be something. It can be reflected back as a test of the faith in ourselves. Do we take that from somebody, or are we just like, yeah, like Suda says right down here, F them. And you're just kind of like, okay. But if you put a lot of work in, and then that becomes a wall that's up, that's really that can be really frustrating. But then the question is, well, is there a validity to that? Is something stopping you from doing something? So in any case, I happen to enjoy my doctoral work a lot. And I always say, and I was talking to somebody in the class last night, I said, academic engagement should be interesting. It should be enjoyable. It should not be something that it's just like, oh God, I got to sit here and listen to this. It shouldn't be something you feel you have to do to check a box, or, well, I'm obliged to do this. There's a certain element of that all the time, even with things that we enjoy. But the idea is like, turn your work into something that you enjoy. I hope that kind of makes sense. I mean, I didn't want to derail too much into that, but I often feel that whole process is kind of a good example of how we can something, or maybe even something that initially gave us joy, how it can become, how there can be all of this things around it, some of it fair, some of it unfair, but the way in which it can make us, or it can reform us, or it can strengthen our character, right? It can also traumatize us too, but it's the question of how do we put that stuff in the crucible and work with it. Because my students were saying, yeah, there's some classes where the professors just walk up and down and go, you're wrong, you're wrong. This is apparently a thing. And I'm like, well, there's a mindset that says people need discipline, right? But I don't know. I rethink the idea that, is that the way to get people to learn? Kind of back to the beginning of, how do people learn now? Is that the way to get people to learn? I've often felt like, even as manager, it's like you give people breathing space to be themselves. Even work should be fun and joyful, not drudgery or unnecessary competition. Yes, that's right, Suda. Exactly. Well, that was the thing. And that was always the way I felt as a manager too, was like, there's always going to be things that we don't like about something, but it's not like, well, I have to do this bad thing because ultimately it's good for me. It's like, like I said, like eating your vegetables or taking your medicine. I mean, life should not be all taking your medicine, right? Like, here, hold your nose and do this, that's not, and it's like, why do you have to live that way? Why do you have to live that way? That's not the way life should be. And to me, like I said, one of the reasons I think I did academia for years, yes, resonates. Yeah. I did academia for years was because I was fortunate. I was in a lot of situations where there was that kind of engagement. There was that conversation, when I was an undergrad, and they don't do this anymore for a lot of reasons, but the department admin her house was right across the street. So she was like, oh, we'll order pizza. Everybody come over. They invite everybody who's the majors in the department taking classes. And one of the professors would present their research and start talking about the books they're writing and stuff. And then people would be able to engage with them and ask questions. The word schola actually means leisure. Okay. That's what I was telling them last night. Schola comes from the word for leisure. Scholarship should be about really being able to go deeply into things, having the time. In other words, you don't need to be out digging ditches. You can spend your time contemplating things. And so to be a scholar is to be leisurely. But instead, we turn it into, like everything else we do in this culture, into a drudgery. It's like, no, you're not working enough hours. You're not doing enough this. Joseph Campbell had a thing where he was talking about a kid who was in a restaurant with his parents and at the table nearby, and the kid did not want to eat his vegetables. And the father was like, "You have to eat those vegetables." And his mother's going, "He doesn't have to eat them if he doesn't want to." And the father's going, "What do you mean? Of course he does. I've lived my entire life and I've never done a single thing I've wanted to do." And Campbell was just sitting there going on his table going, "Whoa, really? You spent your whole life not doing a single thing. Life is just something you do because it's good for you, right?" Anyway, let's get on to our, we'll do our Zen reading, Osho Zen reading, and then we'll finish up. But yeah, think about that may be part of it. What are we doing just, because determinedly, I have to do it. I have to do it this way because it's good for me. Yeah, I mean, there is, I think, I often feel like if we're going back to talking about Amma, there's people who would go to her and say, "Amma, please test me." And she would just look at them. And I'm like, why would you ever ask her that? It's like you're not going to get enough tests in life on your own. Like you got to go look for it, right? Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah, our central card here is participation, 4 of Wands, right? So we saw the twins, right? How are we participating in the world? How are we connecting with people? And again, we got this yesterday, is the inner feeling, 6 of Wands, success. We feel that we have reached a milestone, that we have accomplished something. There's something for which we can pat ourselves on the back and say, "Yay, you, good job." And the external feeling of which we are aware is the Ace of Pentacles. This is the maturity card. Now, maturity has a lot to do with Saturn energy, but the maturity card here as well has to do with this has to do with, how do I want to put it? Ace of Pentacles energy is about, it's about new beginnings. Okay. It could be new financial beginnings. But if we think about Earth energy, Capricorn energy, things like that, this new kind of energy that we have, the maturity card, it's like there's this new beginning that's coming up. We're well aware of it, and we're starting this new beginning with a certain level of experience. Okay, there's a new beginning. These both are cards that suggest that we have successfully completed some kind of a task or some kind of a thing. Okay, so that's the good thing. Now, the advice card is the awareness card. This is the Chariot. Okay, the card number 7. And as we've said, this is where the person's external shadow fades away and the divinity is seen within. And that is interesting because that gives us a different perspective on the Ankh card. It's almost the idea that when you're aware of the divinity in yourself and you're aware of the divinity in others, and you can live that and see that, that makes you approach life in an entirely different way. When you can recognize that, even in people who you don't like, even in people who you don't agree with or don't care for, but also being able to see it in yourself. A lot that we think about around the phrase self-forgiveness is coming into my mind. And a lot of the reasons we don't forgive ourselves is because we are that critical person. We're that person of, you got it wrong. You didn't do it right. You didn't do enough. You're not enough. You should be ashamed of, fill in the blank, this, that, or the other thing. And this is saying, no, you're coming into awareness of your own divinity, or of the Buddha consciousness within, however you want to look at it. I love this Chariot card, is what Sudha's saying. Yeah, this is a good one. This is an interesting take on it too, because it's not like you're necessarily seeing the guy driving the chariot. It's the idea that you are aware of your own power. You're aware of your own, what you've done. Is that why forgiveness? Well, forgiveness, I think when it comes to self-forgiveness, it has to do with the way that we limit ourselves. We limit ourselves because, yeah, I would do this, but I suck at it. Oh, well, I tried this, but, somebody told me, people tell us things about ourselves, or we just think, oh, well, there's a problem in this relationship, or this is happening because I'm not good at this, or I'm not good in that. Is that why forgiveness is important? I think forgiveness is always important because forgiveness fundamentally is about releasing anger. So appropriate use of fire energy, right? It's not, and releasing anger doesn't mean like, oh, okay, I feel good now, it's all okay. Forgiveness is more about, okay, you know what, whatever's happened. And normally it's not, a lot of people think it means we say, okay, I forgive you in the sense of, you know, you didn't do anything wrong. And sometimes, I don't know, sometimes people do get hurt about things when you haven't done anything wrong. But but forgiveness is more like, you know what, I'm not gonna spend my energy being angry about this. That's what forgiveness is. I'm just withdrawing my anger. And when you do that, then you know the way that you feel towards the person, and that takes time. That's not necessarily something you can just declare. It's something I think you have to feel. You know, you can mouth the words "I forgive you," but then inside you're still going, "Yeah, you little piece of shit." You know, I mean, we can be that way. Taurian, I'm a Taurian. Taurians especially are known for hanging on to that. But real forgiveness is when you reach that point of like, you know what, whatever, have a good life. You know, I mean, you know, you might be friends with the person again, you might not, or you might connect with the person again, or you might not. But it's just kind of like, you know what. And part of the reason we release the anger is because all of us at some times, maybe, you know, do things that people misunderstand, or maybe we don't always do things the right way. But it's not about punishing ourselves for Saturn. To me, is not about punishing yourself for feeling like you didn't do it right. This isn't about adding shame to you. This isn't about adding, you know, more criticism about, you know, you better do it better next time. Like, it's not, that's, I think, the way that we tend to go with things. And it's like, no. It's just about like, take another look at it again, release your anger on it, and that kind of thing. So yeah, so I think that's the importance of it. And we're not very good at it, especially for ourselves. I think it's easier to forgive other people, truthfully, than it is to forgive ourselves, because deep down we think like, yeah, like a lot of people who have been through trauma, they'll say, I'm really angry at myself for not having done this in this way, you know? And it's like, yeah, but there's no way you could have known. It's not like you had this bird's eye view of everything and knew how to act, right? But we feel bad because sometimes you feel like you've wasted time, right? I've wasted time. I could have done this, and instead I did this. You know, I married that person when maybe I shouldn't have. You know, like we all have things like that. That was one of mine. But you can't feel ashamed about it. There's something to be gained out of even those experiences. So, and our outcome, yeah, we are past time, is the Creator, King of Wands. Okay, and that also to me connects to the Ankh. Be aware of who you are and create in that space. Be aware of what you've achieved. Be aware that you are a worthy participant, you know, and that you are operating in this new space from a place of maturity. Okay, you already know. It's like, congratulations, you already know things, and internally you are Shiva, or you are Christ, or you are you know, Buddha, whatever. I mean, however you want to conceive of that, there is that thing that's within you, and that makes you and it makes you important, and it makes everybody around you important. So that's what came up for today. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I'll be back. I should be back tomorrow morning. Yeah, we'll be back tomorrow, and I'll try to delve a little bit more into the Saturnian thing to talk about tomorrow. But in the meantime, I hope